Hello and welcome back to Ticker Symbol Live, the channel that tries to take a look at ARK Invest's vision of the future and map it to their moves in the stock market today. I was out yesterday sick. I was also reading all about the stocks in ARKX, I won't lie to you. So I like to spend my free time researching stocks anyway, and that's what I was doing in my downtime. Today we're going to be talking about BAINF Inc. Surprisingly, not in ARKX. The surprise is that we're not talking about an ARKX stock, not that BAINF Inc., which is a Fintech stock, is not in ARKX. And the reason we're doing that is because ARK made a massive buy in BAINF Inc. in the last 2 days. We'll also briefly cover what's going on in ARKX. I think a lot of the stocks in there are actually too early to call, so I'm specifically avoiding talking about it. Also, because as more and more of you find out more about my background in rocket science and in the space exploration industry, I think it becomes more and more important for me to really think about what I say in that space in particular before I say anything. So today, let's look at the data. We'll quickly do an overview of what's in ARKX right now, and then we'll hold our horses, rewind, and go back to what ARK Invest is actually buying in their other actively managed ETFs. So here's the ARK Reactor. It's loaded up. It's fixed up to handle ARKX as well. ARKX, since it's a new ARK fund, it's massively growing and changing, which means all the visualizations have to account for small funds and big funds right now, and quickly growing funds and slow growing funds right now. And I'll show you some of that real quick. So I have ARKX unselected right now. And if I select it, you can see that there will be a lot of changes to the ARK Reactor. The reason for that is because as people dump many dollars into ARKX, all of the positions that are specific to ARKX are increasing by incredible amounts. 8,000% increase in shares over the last 2 days, and this is purely due to increase in assets under management. So lots of noise in the data due to ARKX, and that's what we're trying to filter out here day by day, right? So removing ARKX, you can see that their biggest buy is in a company called BAINF Inc., which is the topic of today's presentation. Notably, there are a lot of other things going on. Morgan Stanley, which is just cash, big increases in cash. And there are other big outsized buys over the last couple days. So I picked the one that's by far the biggest, and that's how we're going to go through it. Just a quick note, here's the contents of ARKX as they stand today. Trimble in the number one position, about 8 2/3% by weight. They have currently just under $30 million in it in ARKX. So much bigger position in other funds like ARKQ, where it's the number 2 position, than ARKX anyway. The number 2 position is Print. That's ARK Invest's 3D printing ETF. Then Kratos Defense and Security, Lockheed Martin, JD.com, and then Komatsu. And we can go down and down this list. And if you're interested in doing that, let me know in the comments below, and we can do something like talk about every ARKX specific stock and why it's in there and what's going on. But just as a refresher on that, there's really 3 types of stocks in ARKX, right? There's enablers, beneficiaries, and then the aerospace companies themselves, right? The aerospace companies being the ones that launch orbital and suborbital satellites to do things like provide internet, enable GPS, and all that. The enablers are going to be things like 3D printing, which enable new designs that are lighter and stronger for aerospace parts, and companies that do things in robotics and automation to enable aerospace parts being built. And the third ones are the ones that people are talking about in the comments below already. Why is Netflix in ARKX? That's because it's a beneficiary. So when more and more people get access to internet via satellite-based internet, giving internet to all over the world, companies like Netflix, Google, Amazon are going to be the primary beneficiaries as more and more people are able to sign on to their services for the first time. So that's what's going on with ARKX. Going back to the data, we can see that BAINF Inc., ticker symbol 4477, or BAINF on the OTC markets, is their biggest buy for the last 2 days. So we're looking from March 30th to April 1st, just because I was out yesterday. So this is aggregating 2 days instead of 1. They increased their position by almost 400%, or, they quintupled their position. So in the last 2 days, they added 400% to their position. So what the heck is this thing? let's talk about it. Switch what I'm sharing here. Share screen. Do one of these guys. So first of all, it's a Japanese company, so it took me a little while to make sure I'm even talking about the right thing. So BAINF stock on the OTC markets, BAINF. It's trading at around $15 right now. If I go and I look at their last market close, it's 1593 Japanese yen on the Tokyo exchange. So I looked at the exchange rate and made sure, 1439 is what the ARK Reactor was showing me that it closed on 2 days ago. And if you look at their closing price in Japanese yen, that's what it maps to. So just making sure we're even talking about the right stock, because as soon as you look at foreign stocks, things get a little wonky. One of my favorite parts about looking at stocks on the Tokyo Exchange, by the way, is they take a lunch break. I didn't know that could happen. So there's no data from like 11:30 to 12:30 because the Japanese stock market's on lunch. I think that's so cool. So BAINF. BAINF is a fintech company. BAINF talks about payment to the people, power to the people. I tried to look up their investor presentation. It's all in Japanese. So what I did was I perused their American website, and I did that thing I always do when I can't find a presentation, which is I made one myself. So BAINF is a Japanese payment and e-commerce enablement company. It's a fintech company that allows you to do everything online, right? And it breaks up into a few different components. An online shop opening service, so e-commerce. So it allows you to open your shop just by filling out 3 items. So very frictionless way to open up a shop online, right? It's an online shop service that everyone can easily create. You create your own online shop, equipped with functions that are necessary for the operation of online shops. Easy to implement payment functions, stylish design templates, and transaction analysis tools. So the business front end, as well as the business data analytics behind it, is what this company is about. People are talking about Japanese Shopify. Yeah, it's probably some combination of Japanese Shopify and Japanese Square, right? Because as we'll see, the other things that it does is accept payments on both sides of that transaction. So it's also a shopping app, right? So it's an e-commerce app of its own. So in addition to being a Shopify, think of it as like a little Amazon where it can show people similar items but across different shops. So it allows you to purchase your favorite items from over 1.4 million shops. So remember, when you're a consumer, you don't care that you're looking at one shop at a time necessarily. Sure, you do if you have brand loyalty, but the other thing you're doing when you're shopping at a marketplace, for example, is you're really just looking for the item you want, and you're willing to shop around, and BAINF allows you to do that. So it has all of its vendors, and then on the consumer side, it's saying, hey, you're looking for this new pot for a plant. We're going to show you similar pots from many different stores. So enabling both sides of that marketplace. It breaks things out by a wide range of genres, right? Trends, fashion, interior accessories, entertainment, hobby and cosmetics, home appliance, etc., right? So a little more like Amazon, including food and beverage, right? Agricultural products, fresh vegetables. So think about that versus, say, Amazon Pantry, right? Or even a online Whole Foods. It's also a bank. So financial service that shop owners can fundraise immediately without risk. So Yell Bank, which is a service within Base, is a financial service that can allow online shop owners to raise funds immediately without risk. In anticipation of future sales, Yell Bank will purchase future accounts receivable from the shop owner. So it's also a liquidity provider, right? So that's where I think it's comparable to Square, because Square offers things like microloans, right? Unsecured loans, and ways for people to get money quickly for their business through Square. And they're doing that as part of being an overall suite of financial services, front end and back end, for vendors to be able to keep them all on that ecosystem. What we're working through here is BAINF's ecosystem. That's the key here, right? And then, of course, online payment. So again, a little more like Square, right? Or, even Amazon Pay, etc. But that payment transaction solution. So payment service that can be implemented with simple APIs, variable functions, right? Various functions, and easy to understand pricing. So based on the concept, make all payments simple, we've designed a system that's easy for all developers to adopt, regardless of individual all the way to corporation, and we solve a complicated online payment service that takes time to apply and is expensive and difficult to use. Again, financial transactions need to be secured, especially online ones, especially cross-vendor ones, right? So being able to do all this in the same one app makes BAINF a fintech ecosystem. So something between Shopify, Amazon, and Square, which makes it a really interesting company. And then finally, part of the payment app and Pay ID is easily settling those transactions. So just by reading a dedicated QR code with your smartphone, right? So very, very quick, easy, contactless way to pay, transact securely, right? If you register your information in advance, you don't need to enter your credit card number or delivery address information each time. It's possible to register multiple credit cards and use them according to the purpose. So, you have different benefits on each credit card. You can always select the one you want and pay with that in a very frictionless way. Scan the QR code and you're done. And it's available at 1.4 million shops. So enabling frictionless value transfer at every step of the way, enabling businesses to be on this giant marketplace and have them manage their own backend, giving them access to microloans through Yell Bank, and frictionless payment so that consumers can quickly find them among all the other stores on the marketplace and transact with as little friction as possible, which of course turns into more transactions. One thing I want to point out is that recently, Cathie Wood has been talking a lot about fintech. I think that we're going to see a big trend away from genomics and into fintech. And all I mean when I say that is people have been pounding the table on genomics being the next round of big winners. I think fintech is going to compete hard for that space. So this is a little meme I created. And all I'm trying to say is we shouldn't just be looking at ARKG over the next 5 years as the outsized performer due to the genomics sector blowing up. I think fintech is very misunderstood in the amount of crazy value it provides all over many different market sectors, verticals, geographies, different scales, all the way from individuals to corporations. I think fintech is going to give genomics a run for its money over the next 5 years. That's what I'm calling out here. So hopefully that's a little taste of what some of the other small companies in some of the other funds are looking like, why ARK Invest is picking them and not just sticking to big winners like Teladoc, Tesla, Square, PayPal, and all that. I think these companies are increasingly important. And my question to you is, are you interested in overseas markets? Are you interested in emerging markets? Are you specifically hunting for extra stocks that are in different geographies like European or Asian markets? Does a company's location matter to you? This is a Japanese company. And as we saw with Pinduoduo a couple weeks back, some of these companies really cater to their specific audience and their geography, right? They're very localized is what I'm trying to say. The culture there, social shopping, social commerce, group shopping, may not be the same type of shopping culture we have in America. Does that kind of thing matter to you? Or do you think that the concept of social shopping, group shopping, team shopping, social commerce, do you think that will win out in the long run as just something that everyone can enjoy because shopping, it can be a fundamentally social experience? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below or in the live chat comments, of course, what you think about localization as part of a company's identity versus taking a step back and just being a company that happens to be headquartered anywhere in the world specifically. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So I'll turn to the comments now, and then we'll wrap up with any questions either about BAINF, ARK Invest's biggest purchase over the last 2 days. It's a fintech company, or about ARKX. I'll entertain a few of those, but just be aware that fund is new and that fund is going to change over time very quickly as it grows. So lots of interesting comments already. Let me hide the banner here. I own Square, but genomics will probably dominate. Yeah, I mean, it's good to diversify, right? The good thing about genomics and Square is they have nothing to do with each other. So when one goes down, the other probably is not for the same reasons, unless it's some overall market condition like, stimulus being delayed or people rotating out of tech in general or all that. So the nice thing about ARK is you don't really have to choose. We can look at their research in both and say, hey, Genomics is going to win. Hey, Fintech is going to win, and then split our own baskets according to our own beliefs about the future. Japanese tech is unique due to language and culture. I'm not investing yet because I don't know much about Japanese culture. This is a great comment. I think that especially in Asian markets, a lot of those companies definitely are tailored to the local population. I think Pinduoduo really knows a lot about the people that it specifically is trying to serve, and it's not necessarily too worried about mapping their services onto other markets and other cultures. And that's not by any means a hit against Pinduoduo. That's a company that knows what it is designed for and who it is designed for. And that certainly may be true about BAINF. But ARK Invest is holding it anyway because they know that they might be having an outsized gain in those markets, right? Pinduoduo, if it's doing great in Japan, its stock price is still going to go up, So that's that one step further in research there. If ARK has to suddenly divest from all of its positions, as we saw with other hedgies last week, we're going to see some negative price pressure from all these stocks. How do you manage that risk? Well, I think there's a little bit of a difference here. So ARK doesn't play options as far as I know, which means it's not shorting things, which means it's not getting margin called. So ARK Invest isn't really forced to divest of anything because they're unwilling to, cover their calls or whatever. They're going long, and they show you how they're going along each and every day, and they play around volatility. So I'm not really sure what the forcing function to make ARK Invest suddenly divest of all of its positions would even be. My guess is it would look something like the entire market closing, some repeat of 2008 where just everything crashes and the whole system of playing around volatility doesn't really work anymore because the market stops moving. So I'm not really sure how to respond to this other than ARK Invest is not a hedgie, so they probably don't have the same worries and type of risks. And on to your second part of your question, how do you manage the risk is decide on your position and allocation on ARK Invest as a whole, right? What's your comfort level on disruptive innovation? You manage that risk by saying, okay, no more than 30% of my portfolio will be in that stuff anyway. So even if that whole system crumbles, I can keep food on the table if that's how you're making all your money, right? Another great point. ARK Invest doesn't use leverage. Yeah, that's my understanding too. These are unlevered long-term bets, right? So they're not shorting anything and they're not doing anything on margin or with other people's money. So very different types of risks, both mathematically and just commonsensically, right? They are betting on the future, which means they're going long. It's a very elegant solution because those are the types of things that you can have a conversation around. I believe genomics is the future of healthcare, so I'm buying that stock today because it's going to be more expensive tomorrow. When you're talking about shorting stuff and levering stuff and buying stuff on margin and all that, you're really talking about mechanics instead of companies and the future and technology. And that's just not what this channel is about because that's just not what I think, in my opinion, ARK is about. Nope, this isn't true at all. So this is a great question and one that I get often. So the question is, wouldn't massive selling of ARK's ETFs force them to reduce? They don't control the flows in or out. All Cathie Wood thinks about is allocation, right? So all she's doing is making investment decisions about the weights of the stocks in her funds, and she takes money off the top. That's that 0.75% management fee for doing that when you buy an ARK fund, right? When outflows go out, they get reduced by the ratio of the stocks in that fund. When inflows come in, the fund increases according to the ratios of the stock in that fund. And all that happens is Cathie Wood and ARK Invest are managing those weights, and you're paying them to do the research to manage those weights in a way that guarantees you the most returns over time. And again, that management of weight happens for multiple reasons, not just conviction, but literally that active trading around volatility, right? them selling Tesla, for example, is not a reduction in conviction of Tesla. It's literally taking money from gains from Tesla and putting it elsewhere because they think that money will grow, and Tesla knowing that they will buy Tesla again when it inevitably dips because it's a volatile stock which has nothing to do with the company's fundamentals. Some overseas companies seem to trade at steep discounts compared to US companies. Yep, that's exactly why we're talking about them. That's exactly right. Steep discounts, especially as people continue to rotate out of growth and into value, right? So rotate out of tech and into value is how I like to think about it. You can find some great stocks at steep discounts. When I started buying into Teladoc a couple weeks ago, I was buying it 40% off of what it was recently. So it's going to, almost double by the time it reaches a new all-time high based on my cost basis, based on the day I made that video. And this is the last question I'll take for today. Keep it short and punchy. Why is Tesla not in ARKX? Yep, that's a great question. Tesla definitely fits the description of ARKX. I just don't think Tesla fits the spirit of ARKX. I think really what ARKX is about is companies that fundamentally leverage space-based technology. Tesla doesn't do that, right? So although Tesla would be an enabling technology because it's in AI, robotics, renewable energy, specifically electric, right? It certainly fits the bill. But I think what ARKX stocks are designed to be is leveraging satellite-based communications, whether that's internet or GPS, enabling parts and manufacturing processes that go into space, or benefiting directly from the different communication signals that get shot down specifically from space, right? Again, that's GPS-enabled companies, which tend to be agriculture, large industrials, and things like that, as well as internet-enabled companies like the Netflixes, Amazons of the world that benefit as more and more people come online, right? So those are the three categories that are in ARKX. I would love to see SpaceX in there. And that's why I think companies like Tesla, while they fit the literal description of the fund, do not fit the spirit of the fund yet, even though there's a Tesla in space. Great. Last question. I know I said the last one was the last one, but you guys are keeping them coming, and I was out yesterday, so I'm happy to spend a little extra time. Do you see Netflix also being in ARKX for their video compression algorithms for sending video communications to space? This is a great call. I'm not sure where I stand on that specifically, but realize that Netflix is also in ARKW, probably for this exact reason. And, if it's in ARKK right now, for that exact reason, because it's using artificial intelligence to do things like smartly compress video. It uses artificial intelligence, I should say, to do a lot of wonderful things on its screen, from its recommendations to things like choosing the thumbnail that it presents you, right? That actual image. They have like 9 or 10 of those for every movie, and they decide based on who they think you are, which one is most likely to get you to click. All the way to things like what Austin R is talking about. Their video compression is done in a smart way based on how that video is best compressed. What part of that is in which fund probably still eludes me a little bit, but realize that Netflix is a massive online company, ARKX, that does a lot in the artificial intelligence space, ARKW. And those two funds definitely overlap. Great. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, this was a talk both on Base Inc. and ARKX, just because ARKX just came out, and Base Inc. is their biggest purchase for the last couple trading days. So payment to the people, power to the people, and knowledge to the people. Thanks for joining me. My name is Alex. This is Ticker Symbol Live, and I'd like to remind you that the best investment you can make is in you. Thanks for watching.